Most people don't realize freedom isn't just something you can feel, it's something you create. Every day, you're faced with a choice. Will you continue to live in the loop of survival, shackled by your circumstances? Or will you break free and claim the life you deserve? Cut to visuals of transformation, growth, success. Today, we're talking about a truth that few want to face. That money isn't just about luxury, it's about freedom. It's the key to escaping the chains of dependency, fear, and limitation. Because when you control your time, when you control your choices, when you break free from the prison of obligation, that's when you unlock your true potential. That's when you're no longer just getting by. You're living life on your terms. A life of freedom or a life of slavery. The path is yours to take. Time is the one resource we all have in common. Rich or poor, young or old. We each wake up with the same 24 hours in a day. But how we get to use those hours, that's where the real difference lies. For most people living in financial struggle, time isn't theirs. Doesn't belong to them. It's leased out, hour by hour, in exchange for survival. You work not because you want to, but because you have to. And when you're forced to trade your time for money just to keep the lights on or food on the table, you're not living, you're existing. When you don't have money, your schedule isn't yours. You're told when to wake up, when to show up, how long to stay, and when you're allowed to leave. Every minute of your day is governed by someone else's clock. Your boss's deadlines, your landlord's rent due date, the interest on your debt. All of it becomes a metronome that dictates how fast you need to move and how little room you have to breathe. You don't have the freedom to slow down. You don't have the luxury to pause, to plan, to think long term. You're on a hamster wheel, burning energy just to stay where you are. In this system, time becomes a burden. You wake up dreading the day ahead, not because you lack dreams, but because there's no room to chase them. You may be grinding, working hard, pushing through, but if your time isn't under your control, it doesn't matter how hard you work. You're still living under someone else's rules. The truth is harsh. Without financial leverage, your time will always be controlled by external forces. And time, once spent, is gone forever. Now contrast that with the experience of someone who has reached financial stability, or better yet, financial independence. They still have 24 hours just like you, but they decide how those hours are spent. They wake up when their body is ready, not when the alarm tells them. They schedule their days around passion, purpose, and progress, not necessity. They work not because they have to, but because they choose to. Their time becomes a canvas, not a cage. Control over time isn't about laziness or avoiding work. It's about owning your hours. It's about doing work that aligns with your goals, not just your bills. It's about creating space for your mind to breathe, to reflect, to innovate. That kind of time is fertile. It grows ideas, it sparks creativity, it fuels fulfillment. It allows for real rest and intentional action. More than anything, time freedom removes the pressure to always be on. You're not racing the clock. You're not fighting to fit life in between the cracks of your schedule. You can live deliberately. You can take risks because you're not desperate. You can step away when needed, recalibrate, or chase a new opportunity without fear of instant collapse. That's the power that money brings. Not luxury, not status, but command over the most limited and precious resource there is, time. Life changes dramatically when your actions are driven by choice rather than obligation. It's easy to assume we all make our own decisions, that we're in control of our lives. But for those trapped in financial hardship, that illusion shatters quickly. Poverty doesn't just restrict your wallet. It restricts your options. Every move you make, every step you take is guided not by what you want to do, but by what you have to do. It becomes a life of survival, not selection. When you don't have money, you don't choose the job. You take whatever job is available. Whether it pays enough, whether it fulfills you, whether it respects you, those questions don't even enter the conversation. You do it because the rent's due, because groceries don't buy themselves, because there's no safety net if you fall. Your obligations become your compass. They steer your ship. You may be the captain, but the wind isn't yours to command. This lack of financial power seeps into every aspect of life. You don't choose where to live. You go where the rent is lowest. You don't choose how to eat. You buy what you can afford, not what's healthy or nourishing. You don't choose how to spend your weekends. You're recovering from exhaustion or taking on side hustles just to make it to the next paycheck. Life gets smaller. Not because your dreams shrink, but because your circumstances close every door you once hoped to open. Obligation turns dreams into burdens. You might want to start a business, but you can't take the risk. You've got mouths to feed. You might want to invest in your growth, learn a new skill, or take a class. But time and money are both already spoken for. Your days get filled before you even wake up. And in that space, dreams quietly die. Not with a loud crash, but with a slow, silent fade. Now consider the opposite. The life that comes with financial freedom. It's not about luxury or extravagance. It's about options. You choose the job that aligns with your values. You choose how much you work, where you work, and who you work with. You're not cornered into situations that drain you. You have the power to walk away when something no longer serves you. A job, a city, a relationship. Because you're not chained by need. That's what real power looks like. Not dominance over others, but sovereignty over yourself. When you can afford to choose, your entire mindset changes. You start asking different questions. Instead of a what can I do to get by? You ask, what do I want to create? Instead of a what's the cheapest way? You ask, what's the most effective way? Instead of a what will keep me safe? You ask, what will make me grow? The quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. And financial freedom changes the questions entirely. Even basic daily decisions shift. You choose what to wear based on your style, not based on what's clean or affordable. You choose who to spend time with, not just who you're forced to tolerate. You choose what to learn, what to read, what to focus on. You start to design your life instead of just reacting to it. The world opens up, not because it's different, but because your position in it has changed. The most underestimated cost of poverty isn't just physical. It's mental. It's not only about what you can't buy, but what you can't think about. When money is scarce, your mind is flooded with stress, noise, and urgency. Every decision feels heavy. Every moment is weighed down by uncertainty. You're not just tired, you're mentally overloaded. And in that storm of constant calculation, real clarity becomes impossible. When you're broke, you're stuck in survival mode. Your brain doesn't care about growth, vision, or long-term strategy. It's only focused on the next immediate problem. How will you pay that overdue bill? What happens if the car breaks down? Will there be enough to cover rent next month? That's the mental loop. It never stops. It repeats every day, every week, every month. You spend your mental energy just trying to keep the ship from sinking. Not building, not creating, not thriving, just staying afloat. This mental drain leads to something dangerous, decision fatigue. When your mind is constantly juggling financial stress, even small choices become exhausting and exhausting. What to eat, what to wear, who to call back. Every decision feels like one more weight on an already strained system. You become reactive instead of proactive. You start making choices out of pressure, And over time, this shapes your life in ways you don't even notice. Habits form around avoidance, not ambition. You shut out opportunities because you simply don't have the bandwidth to process them. The truth is, clarity doesn't come from working harder. It comes from having space, mental, emotional, and financial space. When money is no longer an emergency, your mind starts to open up. You begin to think beyond today. You begin to ask better questions. You begin to notice things you were too stressed to see before. Patterns in your behavior, gaps in your routine, possibilities in your surroundings. With money comes mental oxygen. You're no longer suffocating under pressure. You can pause, breathe, reflect. You can analyze where you are and where you want to go. That space between stimulus and response, that's where wisdom grows. And without mental clarity, there's no room for wisdom. There's only reaction. You begin to realize how much energy you were burning on things that didn't matter, or things you couldn't change. When you're financially stressed, every part of your brain is locked into worry, doubt, fear. It's like trying to read a map in the middle of a thunderstorm. But when the pressure lifts, the storm clears. You can finally see the road. You can finally choose your direction. Not because the path changed, but because your vision did. And it's not just about peace. It's about focus. It's about focus. The wealthiest people in the world don't necessarily have more intelligence or talent. They have more focus. Their minds are free to zoom in on one idea, one plan, one target. That kind of mental clarity can move mountains. But you don't get there when your brain is juggling a dozen unpaid bills, a shut-off notice, and 3 side hustles. Mental space gives birth to strategy. It allows you to move from chaos to control, from urgency to intention, from noise to purpose. When your mind is clear, you can prioritize. You can simplify. You can execute. That's when progress becomes exponential, not because you're doing more, but because you're doing the right things with undivided energy. Dependency is a quiet trap. It doesn't arrive all at once. It builds slowly, situation by situation, until you wake up and realize you're no longer in control. At first, it feels like help, like support, like someone or something is giving you what you need to get by. But over time, those safety nets become cages. And when you rely on others for your basic survival, you give away your power in exchange for comfort. That's how chains are formed, not by force, but by dependence. Financial dependence is one of the most common, most accepted forms of bondage in the modern world. Whether it's depending on a job you hate, a government check, a family member, or a partner who controls the money, the outcome is the same. You lose your voice. You stop speaking up. You stop taking risks. You stop being your full self. Why? Because deep down, you know your survival is tied to someone else's approval. You can't afford to challenge the system you're relying on. You stay quiet at the job because the paycheck is your lifeline. You accept disrespect from people because they're your landlords, your clients, your providers. You follow rules you don't believe in because breaking them means losing access to the resources you depend on. It's not freedom. It's submission disguised as security. Dependency doesn't just limit your choices. It alters your identity. It shifts how you see yourself. You begin to shrink. To settle. You forget what it felt like to lead your own life. Instead of asking, what do I want to do? You start asking, what am I allowed to do? That shift is dangerous. It kills dreams before they're born. It convinces you that just getting by is the best you can hope for. Or that the ceiling you've hit isn't glass. It's concrete. And it's not just about individuals. Entire communities can be trapped in generational dependency. Systems that were supposed to help lift people out of struggle end up conditioning them to stay in it. When survival becomes automatic, handed out instead of earned, people stop building. They stop creating. They stop dreaming. Dependency at scale doesn't create progress. It creates stagnation. And that's exactly what keeps the power imbalance intact. But here's what makes dependency so deceptive. It often comes wrapped in good intentions. Support programs, financial aid, handouts, they all seem like kindness. And sometimes they are necessary, even life-saving. But when the help becomes permanent, it turns into control. The same hand that feeds you can silence you. The same system that props you up can keep you down. And slowly, subtly, your motivation to rise on your own fades away. You forget what freedom felt like. Or maybe you never knew it in the first place. Real empowerment comes from self-sufficiency, from knowing that your survival, your success, your future is not in someone else's hands. When you earn your money, you own your time. When you build your skills, you control your value. When you break your dependency, you unlock your voice. You start moving differently. You start talking differently. You stop apologizing for wanting more, and you start demanding it. Not from others, but from yourself. Dependency might feel safe, but it's a slow erosion of self-respect. It takes away your ability to say no. It traps you in patterns you didn't choose, and the longer you stay in it, the harder it becomes to see a way out. Because dependency doesn't just create comfort. It creates fear. Fear of change, fear of risk, fear of losing the only thing you think is keeping you afloat. Risk looks different when you're broke. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, when there's no cushion, no backup, no safety net. Every decision feels like a gamble you can't afford to lose. Starting a business, too risky. Quitting a toxic job, too risky. Investing in a course, relocating to a better environment, even taking time to rest, all of it feels like luxury disguised as danger. Because when survival is on the line, you don't bet. You cling. You don't leap. You hesitate. In poverty, risk becomes the enemy. It's something to be avoided, feared, minimized. You don't have the bandwidth to take chances because even small mistakes feel catastrophic. One missed bill, one bad investment, 1 week of downtime, and everything collapses. That kind of pressure doesn't just limit what you do. It rewires how you think. You start to overvalue security, even when it's toxic. You hold on to stability, even if it's crushing you, because at least it's predictable. In a world where risk equals ruin, comfort becomes your prison. But here's what changes when money enters the equation. Risk becomes a tool. It's no longer a force you avoid, it's something you wield. When you have financial breathing room, you can start using risk the way it was meant to be used. As leverage, as momentum, as a calculated force to propel you forward. With a safety net, failure stops being fatal. You can take a shot at something bold without it destroying your foundation. You can try new ideas, test new strategies, explore new ventures, not because you know they'll work, but because you can survive if they don't. That's a different kind of power. It's not the absence of fear. It's the ability to act despite the fear because you know the consequences won't bury you. Financial stability turns risk from a cliff into a staircase. Each step may feel uncertain, but it leads upward. You begin to understand that risk is actually the price of growth. Nothing meaningful, nothing game-changing, nothing transformative ever happens without stepping into the unknown. But that step is impossible when you're shackled by financial stress. Your focus is on keeping the lights on. You can't afford to dream. You can't afford to reach. You can't afford to fall. So you stay where it's safe. And safe only becomes a slow death of potential. Wealth gives you the ability to play offense, not just defense. Instead of constantly reacting to life, you begin initiating. You choose to enter the game. You build things. You take strategic risks, not blind ones. You hire people, start projects, invest time and skills that might not pay off today, but will build long-term value. You can afford to plant seeds that take years to grow because your world isn't built on desperation. It's built on vision, and risk, when it's no longer linked to survival, becomes a catalyst. It fuels innovation. It builds resilience. It teaches lessons faster than comfort ever could. Every misstep sharpens your thinking. Every setback gives you data. Every calculated leap adds another layer to your strength. When you start to see risk as a necessary part of progress, fear starts to lose its grip. You stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what could I build if I succeed? Truth is, risk is neutral. It's not inherently good or bad. What changes is how you're positioned to handle it. The more control you have over your time, your money, your mind, the more risk becomes your ally, not your enemy. Once that shift happens, you no longer run from the unknown. You chase it, not recklessly, but with intention, with clarity, and with a deeper understanding of what's actually at stake. There are two paths a person can walk in life. One leads to legacy, and the other leads to loops. One is forward-facing, driven by vision, built to outlive you. The other is circular, the same problems, the same struggles, repeated across years and generations. And the difference between them often comes down to one thing: money. Not in the shallow sense of wealth for appearance or status, but in the deeper foundational sense. Money as structure, as leverage, as a builder of permanence. In poverty, life becomes cyclical. The problems your parents faced become your own. The same stress, the same scarcity, the same ceilings. It's not because people lack intelligence, drive, or ambition. It's because when you're stuck in survival mode, there's no bandwidth to build anything lasting. You're constantly putting out fires. You're focused on today's crisis, not tomorrow's blueprint. And so even when you work hard, it often feels like you're just running in place. The years pass, but nothing changes. And that loop silently continues. These loops aren't just financial, they're mental, emotional, cultural. Children grow up watching their parents worry about bills, work multiple jobs, and sacrifice every dream for a paycheck that barely covers the essentials. That becomes the script they inherit. They learn early that life is about getting by, not getting ahead. That dreams are luxuries, not plans. That money is hard to get, easy to lose, and always just out of reach. But legacy tells a different story. Legacy says, what I build doesn't end with me. Legacy isn't just about passing down money. It's about passing down momentum. It's about creating a platform that makes the next generation's starting line farther ahead than yours ever was. About systems, assets, values, things that don't disappear when you die, but multiply in your absence. That's the power of money when used with purpose. It plants seeds that continue to grow long after you're gone. When you build legacy, you're not just trying to escape your own problems. You're designing a future for others. You invest in things that outlast trends: real estate, businesses, intellectual property, investments, ideas. You create infrastructure. You make it so that your children, your community, the people who look up to you, they don't have to start from zero. They don't have to choose between passion and survival. They have a foundation strong enough to support both. Legacy requires vision. It requires patience. It requires the discipline to say no to temporary pleasure so you can build something permanent. That kind of mindset doesn't come easy, especially when you've been stuck in loops. It takes unlearning. It takes rewiring. It takes making decisions not just for yourself, but for people you might never even meet. That's the weight of legacy, but it's also its beauty. It forces you to live bigger than your own life. Money plays a central role in this process. Because without financial control, the dream of legacy often stays just that, a dream. You can't build a legacy if your energy is consumed by putting out emergencies. You can't think generationally if you're drowning in debt or barely affording food. Legacy building demands stability, freedom, and resources. And those don't come from hope alone. They come from strategy, work, and positioning. And once you start building legacy, something inside you changes. Your days begin to carry more meaning. You start acting with intention. You move differently because you know every brick you lay is part of something bigger. You stop living only for yourself. You begin thinking in decades, in dynasties, in blueprints that will shape lives long after yours has ended. The loop breaks, and a new structure begins to rise. Success isn't handed to you. It's earned. It's built, brick by brick, choice by choice, step by step. The real question is, are you ready to take control? Are you ready to stop living in the loop and start building your legacy? Because when you stop depending on others for your survival, when you learn how to turn risk into opportunity and build something that lasts, that's when you'll truly understand the power of freedom.